Welcome to Voices, where we give a space for the marginalized to share their art, their work, and most importantly, their voice. My name is Lexirosa. Today, I am so excited to announce my good friend, Kristi. She is a teacher, a mom, and a powerful and beautiful Black woman. Hear her voice.
This piece is titled, Dear Black Girl. Dear Black Girl, I see you sitting there, your head hung low, wondering when and where that sweet chariot will come and carry you home. Wondering over and over again why people judge you by your melanated skin, which is only praised as a tan when forced by summer rays, touching a pale white skin and a less melanated face, or a false bronze held in a metal tin, expelling harmful fumes, trying to recreate the beauty found on your skin. Why, you plead, does the world look at me and scream? When all of our blood flows blue and green until hit by imperfections that oxygen flowing red, you use that same breath to say my brown is a sin? Why do you hate me? What did I do? And then the hate they give causes you to question your beauty. The drama begins. Nose not small enough, eyes too big, thighs too big, hips not small enough, hair not thin enough, lips too huge to measure up to the beauty dictated to me and hailed by you. The world, too much shouting obscenities, pinning me against you and you against me, even as a child. The obscene lies repeated, picture after picture, Barbie after Barbie, doll after doll, book after book, movie after movie, Disney princess after Disney princess, yelling, you are not important. And you most certainly don't deserve a second look. Your identity forsook and your conscience rocked and shook. And after almost 30 years of this, you hear the words as you glean at your reflection. You are beautifully perfect, precious and made in my image. The apple of my eye, the melanated prize, you are beautiful. Believing it ever so slightly, you take that second look. The world told you that you don't deserve, and you say it to yourself. You are beautiful. Fearfully and wonderfully made, you grin, or is it a grimace at the lies that once played over and over again in your head, the false identity the world displays, but instead, today, you said, you are beautiful. That truth begins to permeate your soul. You finally agree and see that your skin is simply gold, that the world has yet to discover, because underneath that brown skin, it covers a majestic design, created and formed by the lover of the universe. Your melanated skin is a gift enclosing a gift. Dear Black girl, you are beautiful.
So I'm here with Kristi. Kristi is actually one of my close friends. I would call you my best friend.
That's fine, I agree. It's the truth.
So you wrote the piece,
Dear Black Girl.
Tell me a little bit about why you wrote that.
So I wrote it because I have a 6-year-old daughter at home. And I want to say contrary to popular belief, but I think the belief is pretty widely held amongst people of color. Just about, like, she asks me questions about that, not about race, but the things that she'll say. And, you know, there was a time where I think she was only 3, and she had made the comment about wanting her skin to be more vanilla and wanting straighter hair and a different name. And then even like recently, yesterday, you know, and I remember doing this as a kid, and, you know, like maybe families that like of white people or like people that aren't Black or brown experience this too, but I just know, you know, my narrative, right? And so Shiloh would, you know, she put like this, it was almost like a wig, but it was a hula skirt.
She'd put the hula
But she put it on her head, and she was like, you know, she goes like, I'm beautiful. And I even watched a TED Talk about this woman whose daughter's biracial, and it wasn't until she straightened her hair that she said, look, Grandma, I'm a princess now. And so then, you know, for Shiloh to have a mom who, I mean, normally, you know me, I wear my hair natural. She has a Black doctor. I try to interrupt the narrative that of like black not being important, or like kind of try to combat the lack of representation of black and brown people. And even with that, she still struggles with, I don't know, I don't want to call it identity, but beauty for sure, like how she sees herself. And so that piece was written out of that moment where I'm like, if I could write a letter to my daughter, if I could, and then some, you know, there's a part in there that talks about like, oh, it took almost 30 years, you know, and I'm 29, and it took me that long to finally be like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm beautiful. Like, it wasn't until I was 26 that I started wearing my hair in like just natural. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, that was like a letter to me, a letter to her, a letter to black and brown girls all over the world. And then even outside of that, just like knowing that it doesn't matter what culture says or what other people say, like, you're beautiful because that's how you're made, you know? So that's that.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because I feel like black is so beautiful. And this is probably something I don't really share often, but sometimes I have been like, I wish that my skin was as clear or as dark, like darker. I do. And so there is this weird, there was a line you included about how like some people, I think, what was the line? It said something about like people that want like the tan. Yeah, like, so brown is like celebrated when you're like, oh my gosh, girl, look how dark I got. Yeah, I'm almost as dark as you. Like, oh my gosh. You know, there's that, we say that a lot too. Like, you hear people saying that, and in a celebratory way. Yeah, but then it's like, that's the same color that got, you know, like, that's the same color that makes people stop and criminalize or dehumanize someone else. And like lately, because we're at home all the time and we're watching Disney movies, not all of them, because I like steered away from them for that very reason. But even now, I'm just like, it's really hard to watch a lot of stuff because dark equates to like the antagonist. Dark equates to evil. If it's darker, it's worse. And so, yeah, if I could tell Shiloh anything, I'd be like, sweetheart, you are beautiful. And I tell her that all the time anyways, especially when her hair is in its natural state. I'm like, you're beautiful. You're beautiful. But I see the older she gets, the more she begins to compare herself to like the worldly standard of beauty is straight hair, blonde, white skin. Yeah, it's our job to just continue to combat that narrative. I think you bring up a really interesting point that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, and honestly, you helped bring awareness to me that in shows, we notice those that are of darker complexion are viewed as the antagonists, or why is the language, right? If we look at some of our childhood shows, there's like a white American voice for certain characters, but then the big bad wolf has like a different voice. A different voice. Yeah, like the time. Yeah, so like there's a show called Goldie and Bear, and then Goldie is the main character, and she's white and blonde, and then Bear is brown, and he's also an animal, and so that just speaks to the dehumanization of just black. And I mean, some people could think, oh, that's a stretch, but it's not. So let's just take it for what it is. And then the only person that has an African American vernacular is the big bad wolf, or is Papa Bear, who is also big and brown. Even in Lilo and Stitch, like there was a black character. He was a social worker guy, and one of the first things Lilo says to him is, "Have you killed anyone?" Because he's big, he's black, he looks like a bodyguard, and he's like kind of scary. And so that perpetuates that narrative that black is scary, that narrative of dehumanizing black people, you know, it's just. What advice would you give to parents who maybe, and I hate to say this, but there's people that haven't had any awareness until right now. For those that now are seeing shows and like, wow, I see this, but I didn't create the show. What advice would you give them? What are shows that they can watch with their kids? Yeah. I think, honestly, it just comes out in conversations, because at the end of the day, Shiloh is going to watch stuff that I could either like just react in fear, you're not going to watch TV at all, versus making sure I'm introducing or reading books, you know, to her where she sees herself. And then for white families, like, make sure you're reading those books too. Make sure you're having conversations too. But it's as simple as like baby dolls, right? And then like using our voices to speak up about what we want to see on TV. You know, I'm still kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, that's like the big picture, right? Like the long game is just
Okay, how do we make a difference in what we're seeing every day on TV? But the right now thing to do is finding different shows, which aren't that many, but there are some out there. We tried to find a couple YouTubers that she could watch where they're brown. But buying different color baby dolls, reading different color books, making sure that like your friend group is diverse.
Yeah.
I think those are easy, like super easy. Those are layups.
Those are steps that can be made today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Especially the books. The books is that's like an easy win for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And there are books that are definitely coming out more.
Heck yeah, there's tons out. Vashti Harrison is an amazing person to look up. Oh gosh, I wish I could think of the other ones. There's a princess one, but we just have a ton of them. We have a ton. Available. Yeah.
So I want to circle back to something you said that it was included in your piece about how it wasn't until like in your 30s or now, like
yeah, girl.
in that age,
a long time,
realizing that you are beautiful as a woman of color. Will you walk me through that a little bit, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I grew up in Royal Oak, where I was definitely the minority, and I just remember one very distinct moment where I wanted my mom to relax my hair, and she didn't relax it all the way, so it was so puffy, but I thought it was beautiful. And then I ended up going to school to impress this boy, and I was in the 4th grade, but I went to the school went to school thinking I was going to impress someone, and him and another girl both were like, "What's wrong with your hair?" And I think from that day on, like I was just like, yo, what is wrong with me? Like, why don't I look like these people? And then our culture teaches us that, what is the standard of beauty? And I think that speaks to what is represented more. So the less you see of something, the more it says it's not important, it's not worth being included. There's no need for it. And so, honestly, it wasn't until I had kids.
Really?
That I was like, I see Shiloh, she's beautiful. I see Jace, he's beautiful. How can I help my children believe that about themselves if I'm constantly straightening my hair, if I'm thinking I need to speak in a certain vernacular, if I'm thinking that this is what I need to wear, act like the majority to be accepted and to be successful? And so that's where my journey began, really, was having kids, because I'm like, yo, I see my brown daughter and my brown son, and I think that they are the most gorgeous beings on this planet. How do I communicate that to them visually and in what we're watching and reading? So that's where my journey, I feel like, really began, honestly.
And what message would you want to give to maybe those who are like that are hearing you and are like, I'm in that struggle right now, so I'm in that in between, where I want to believe I'm beautiful, but I'm at a place where it's hard to accept the features that God has given me, the skin that I have been given.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you would want to tell girls?
Well, I think honestly, we just kill the comparison narrative.
That's so
right?
Good.
Because that's where it really begins, right? So it's like, oh, well, why aren't you beautiful? Because I don't look like her. Or because
so that's where the
I'm
problem starts.
Yeah, I think so. Like comparing yourself, comparing. What do they say? Comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah.
Comparison is a thief of joy, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so starting there, like, stop comparing yourself to people.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, nobody's not beautiful. Like, no one's ugly.
That's
just
true.
Straight up, like,
That's true.
because if you get rid of the comparison, then by whose standard are you ugly or beautiful?
Makes me think of beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Okay, and who's beholding it? Honestly, and that's the other part too. Who is beholding my beauty, right?
That's good.
Because somebody can draw a picture, and then this person is saying, oh, well, that picture doesn't look good. Well, by whose standard?
That's good.
Yeah, and so I think and it's a wrestle every single day.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's every day. It's like, oh my gosh, well, why aren't you beautiful? Well, because my nose doesn't look like, oh, okay, I am beautiful because this is a nose that I've been given. This is a hair that I've been given. And yeah, I think that's step one.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it just takes you saying it to yourself till you believe it.
That's what I was going to ask. So
Yeah.
I know for you had affirmations and like things you would say.
Yeah.
Like transparently having a habit that you created to
Yeah.
communicate to yourself that you are enough every single day.
Yeah, and who you are. And that's like my tattoo says I am who he says I am. And then I have an identity statement that, speaks truth to who I am, or about who I am, and I tell myself that. Because there's just going to be some days where you just don't feel like it, and it's not a feeling at that point, it's just a fact. Like, you're
Say
beautiful.
that again. Say it loud for the people in the back.
It's a fact. You are beautiful. Okay?
Thank you so much. Is there
Yes.
any last minute thoughts that you would want people to know or people to hear? What is the main message you want people to hear?
Yeah, we live in a day and age where there's comparisons all around us. We're on social media now more than ever because of the just pandemic and having to stay indoors. But sometimes it's just helpful to turn that off, and if it means doing it for an hour, if it means doing it for a week or a month, whatever that is, and then write some words of affirmations about yourself, and know that, like we just said, it's a fact that you're beautiful, and that's you can't argue with that because it's the truth.
That's so good.
Yeah.
There's like one last point that I keep debating if I should make or not. But I think about when I worked in news, because if you can land like self-love, you can actually implement change. So when people are like, well, I wish there were different shows. I wish there was this. But first, I think it starts with us.
Oh, that's so good.
Like believing who we are, that we are enough. Because I think for me, when I did go into news, and I was asked to straighten my hair, and that's something that is not talked about, that I was asked as a TV reporter that they would help pay for my hair to get relaxed regularly. Dang. And if it would be incorporated in my journey as a reporter. And I remember during interviews being like, no, I think curly hair girls should be equally represented in the media.
That's good.
But why was that? Because I loved my curly hair. And for me, I loved being different. I didn't want to be like everyone else on TV. I wanted to be different. And eventually I left news because of other things, but that was a part of it, was being a caricature of what other people wanted.
Yeah.
But if you love who you are and you like have pride in who you are, so it starts with us. If we love who we are, then we can actually infiltrate change. And it's been cool because now when I see a reporter that has curly hair, I'm like, yes, girl, I know behind the scenes what it took to say, no, this is my hair. This is my hair. And
that's so good.
So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for letting me.
Yeah, tips. So love yourself.
You are beautiful.